Well, it looks like Donald Trump and his administration did what they always do. They caved in the face of a federal judge's order to fully fund the SNAP anti-hunger payment by the close of business today. It appears that the Trump administration has now funded the full 8 billion in SNAP benefit, despite rushing to an appellate court to urge that the Judge McConnell order in Rhode Island to fully fund the program was somehow unconstitutional. States like Pennsylvania are now notifying SNAP recipients to expect the money in their accounts or on their electronic benefit cards with an average allotment of about $350 per household. That funding can mean the difference between going hungry at night or having enough to eat. This comes despite the administration earlier attempt to defy the court orders and delay the payments. I am glad to report that after following this story all week, the most disadvantaged in our society, children, babies, and elderly, veterans, and people with disabilities, are finally seeing relief. Money is now flowing because Democratic Attorney General and public interest groups like Democracy Forward took the Trump administration to court and secured a series of orders, including two separate temporary restraining orders from Judge McConnell. The Department of Justice struggled to maintain consistency story. Last, late last night, they filed the brief with the First Circuit, claiming it was unprecedented for a single federal judge to literally order the executive branch to find the money, but reality, the government already had the fund. $4.65 billion was available in the federal court for the 8 billion November SNAP payments. Instead of paying in full, they tried to urge they could only make partial payment over a month. Judge McConnell rejected that approach. He directed the government to use existing fund, including 23 million in the child nutrition fund, to top up the account and ensure the full $8 billion could be paid immediately. This solved administration issue, allowed states to avoid partial payment and ensure that SNAP recipients receive their benefits on time. I spoke with Sky Perryman, founder of Democracy Forward, who helped bring this case. Her key point: even if the administration filed for a stay, failing to pay by the end of the day would have been a violation of the court's order. The government pleaded with that disaster right until the very end. Here's a clip of my interview with Sky Perman.
Yeah, so I mean, we got here because the president is truly playing politics with people's lives. There's no other way around it. For days and weeks, he and administration officials claimed that they could not fund SNAP. We've actually never not had SNAP funded, even in government shutdowns. And the judge yesterday made that clear. They claimed that their hands were tied. They couldn't do it. We had to take them to court. The court was clear last Friday that not only did the Trump administration have the legal authority to pay SNAP benefits, but that they had an obligation under the law to do so, and that their dragging their feet was unlawful. That's what happened last Friday. On Monday, the Trump administration showed up to court and said it wanted to pay partial benefits, not full benefits. And as a result of that decision, it submitted its own documents that suggested that people in this country would have to wait weeks and in some cases months for their SNAP benefits. So just to make sure that we understand what that means, it means that a mom that needs to go to the grocery store to put food in the cabinet for her kids can't do so for a period of days and weeks. There's just no way there's truly just no way of tolerating that. The court was clear in its first order that the administration needed to expeditiously resolve any issues so that people could get their SNAP benefits. They did not do so. And so yesterday we had fireworks in the court. We had a great team at Democracy Forward, and our co-counsel with the Lawyers Committee in Rhode Island were on the Zoom hearing yesterday. And the court just had a lot of questions for the government. Said that the government had done nothing to comply with the order from the prior week and enforced that order so that people will get their SNAP benefits, and then made some further findings to require that the government pay full benefits.
We should not have to sue the President of the United States to ensure that the most vulnerable in our society are taken care of. Now, let me show you a clip of Governor Josh, who will join me for a new interview next week, speaking at a press conference about the SNAP payment and this important win for our democracy.
our neighbors who were hungry. 1 out of every 8 of our neighbors relies on this funding, and it was taken away. And we went to work here in the Commonwealth to look out for our fellow neighbors. The first thing we did was we sued the Trump administration to get those SNAP benefits flowing again. The second thing I did, utilizing my authority as governor, was to sign an emergency declaration here in the Commonwealth, which I announced with Laureate Phil Abundance the other day. That allowed us to be able to free up an initial $5 million to be able to send to places like Share, because we knew that more people were going to come banging on their doors seeking help. As a result of that emergency declaration, Share alone received about $740,000 in additional funding that allowed them to purchase more food already and get that food out to the people who are in need in our communities. In addition to that, I appealed to the better angels here in Pennsylvania and appealed to the goodness of our fellow Pennsylvanians and asked people to step up and make contributions to the Pennsylvania Emergency SNAP Fund. And I have to just take a moment and thank so many generous Pennsylvanians who have already donated more than $2 million. And every single cent of that $2 million has made its way to feeding Pennsylvania. And Feeding Pennsylvania has sent those dollars directly to places like Share and Phil Abundance and Weinberg and all of the other food pantries across Pennsylvania. So we are doing what we can, but we know that we can't possibly make up for all of the money the federal government has stopped. Why? Because SNAP each and every month totals $366 million. It's $366 million that ends up on people's SNAP cards that they can use when they go to the grocery store, what have you. So while we're so grateful to Share for stepping up and trying to fill that gap, we know that the only answer here is for the federal government to do the right thing and simply fund SNAP. That's why I sued them. And after I sued them, we won. And just yesterday, a court ruled that the federal government was required to pay out the full amount of benefits to SNAP. This happened yesterday afternoon. Now, the Trump administration, after getting that ruling, couldn't get their act together quick enough. But you know who did get their act together real quick? Secretary Arkush and the team at the Department of Human Services. What did they do? They immediately processed the batches of Pennsylvanians who were owed money on SNAP through our vendor that sends those federal dollars out, and started to get that money flowing in.
Two separate groups filed lawsuit in federal court over the SNAP payment. Democracy Forward, representing church and other public interest group, went to Chief Justice McConnell, while a coalition of 23 Democratic Attorney General failed in Massachusetts with Judge Talwani, a sort of pincer move to put the Trump administration between a rock and hard place. Judge McConnell issued the stronger temporary restraining order. When that order was ignored, Democracy Forward, led by Sky Perryman, returned to the court with her team of lawyers and secured an emergency order yesterday at 3 p.m. In it, Judge McConnell warned, "You are playing with people's lives. There are 16 million children at risk of going hungry because you are failing to properly fund these payments," and pointing to administrative red tape of your own creation. Solve the problem. Take the money from the Section 32 funds or the overfunded Child Nutrition Fund and make the November SNAP anti-hunger payments immediately. Earlier today, I spoke with Sky Perryman, and we were concerned the administration might let Friday pass without making the payments. Families have already spent their October allotments, leaving only $350 for a family of four to cover an entire month. For millions, this delay could mean empty refrigerators, hungry seniors, and crying children. Meanwhile, Donald Trump publicly refused to comply, framing the payments as leverage against Democrats during the government shutdown fight. As these vulnerable Americans went hungry, Trump spent the day in Miami at a business conference raising money for Trump Incorporated and bragging about the economy that was left ordinary Americans struggled. He continues to live lavishly, hosting Gatsby theme even at a Mar-a-Lago, building golden ballroom, taking private flights we cannot afford, and spending taxpayer money on golf trips While people in America go without basic necessities, is it any wonder that on election night, voters who had once supported Trump flipped back to the Democrats, rejecting policies that left the most vulnerable behind?